The massive reptilian figure stood motionless in the shadows of his private chamber, surrounded by trophies that told stories of countless hunts across the galaxy. Kethvar the Relentless measured 12 feet from his scarred head to the tip of his armored tail. His scales, darker than the space between stars, had turned aside plasma bolts and energy blades for over 3 centuries. Each claw on his massive hands could pierce starship hull plating with ease. The trophy room stretched before him like a museum of death. Glass cases lined the walls, each containing the preserved remains of creatures that had once been considered the apex of their species. In one corner sat the crystallized form of a Vex Mindweaver, its tentacles frozen mid-strike. The creature had been able to control thoughts across vast distances, commanding entire fleets with its mental powers. Yet it now served as decoration in Kethvar's collection. Nearby, the shimmering carapace of a Zephyrian queen caught the dim light. These beings could phase between dimensions, making them nearly impossible to track or kill. The Queen had ruled 17 star systems before Kethvar found a way to trap her between realities. Her death had earned him enough credits to purchase his own moon. But the centerpiece of his collection remained the Void Wraith's essence, contained within a specially designed energy field. The Wraiths were beings of pure energy that fed on star cores. They were considered immortal by most species, existing outside normal spacetime. Kethvar had spent 50 years learning their patterns before finally cornering one near a dying star. The hunt had nearly killed him, but the reward was beyond measure. Each trophy represented months or years of careful study. Kethvar never hunted randomly. He researched his prey, learned their weaknesses, studied their behavior patterns. He was not just a killer but a scientist of death, approaching each hunt like a complex puzzle to be solved. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor outside his chamber. Kethvar's head turned slightly, his keen hearing identifying the visitors before they announced themselves. 3 beings walked with the careful steps of those who feared they might become prey themselves. The door to his chamber slid open with a soft hiss. 3 figures entered, their expensive clothing marking them as representatives of the Zephyrian Trade Consortium. The leader, a tall humanoid with blue-tinted skin, stepped forward first. His companions, both shorter and clearly nervous, remained near the doorway as if ready to flee at any moment. "Great Hunter," the leader began, his voice carrying the practiced smoothness of a merchant. "We come before you with an offer worthy of your legendary skills." Kethvar turned slowly, his massive form casting long shadows across the trophy room. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Speak your offer, Consortium Dog. My time is valuable." The blue-skinned merchant smiled, though sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool temperature of the chamber. "We seek your services to eliminate a problem that has been troubling our operations. A human colony has been disrupting our trade routes in the Outer Rim territories." The merchant reached into his coat and produced a data pad, holding it out with steady hands despite his obvious fear. "They have destroyed 3 of our shipping convoys and freed over 10,000 valuable assets. The colony operates from a hidden base somewhere in the Kepler system." Kethvar's eyes narrowed as he examined the information on the pad. Images showed wreckage of massive cargo ships, their hulls torn open from the inside. The attackers had been thorough and efficient, leaving no survivors among the consortium crews. "These humans," Kethvar said slowly, his claws tapping against the data pad. "How many guard this colony?" "Intelligence suggests no more than 500 individuals," the merchant replied quickly. "They possess only basic weapons and primitive technology. Our sources indicate they are mostly scientists and researchers who established the colony illegally." The merchant's confidence grew as he continued. "The consortium is prepared to offer 10 billion credits for the complete elimination of this colony. It is the largest bounty we have ever authorized." For a moment, silence filled the chamber. The merchant waited expectantly, certain that such an enormous sum would guarantee acceptance. His companions shifted nervously, still eyeing the various trophies that surrounded them. But something unexpected happened. As the word humans fully registered in Kethvar's mind, his entire demeanor changed. His scales, which had been a neutral gray-black, began to shift to a darker hue. His claws extended slightly, and his breathing became more rapid. The Great Hunter took a step backward, his eyes widening in what could only be described as fear. For the first time in centuries, Kethvar the Relentless experienced genuine terror. His massive hands began to tremble almost imperceptibly. "No," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The data pad clattered to the floor as he released it. The merchant blinked in confusion. "Great Hunter, perhaps you did not hear the amount correctly. 10 billion credits for a simple elimination contract. These are merely humans, weak creatures with short lifespans and inferior technology. Kethvar shook his massive head slowly, backing further into his trophy room. You do not understand what you ask. Find another hunter for your human problem. The merchant's face twisted with frustration and disbelief. But great hunter, your reputation speaks of impossible hunts successfully completed. You have killed gods and demons, creatures of legend. How can mere humans possibly? Leave, Kethvar commanded, his voice carrying a finality that brooked no argument. Leave now, and never speak to me of hunting humans again. The three consortium representatives exchanged confused glances before quickly exiting the chamber. As the door sealed behind them, Kethvar stood alone among his trophies, remembering why the very mention of humans filled him with a terror he had never known before. 3 years earlier, Kethvar had received what seemed like the simplest contract of his long career. The Galactic Hegemony wanted him to eliminate a small human research station on Kepler 442b, a forest world on the edge of known space. The payment was modest by his standards, but the client assured him it would be quick work. 12 humans, the Hegemony official had explained during their meeting. Scientists studying plant life on a primitive world. They have no weapons, no defenses, just basic research equipment. Consider it a vacation, great hunter. Kethvar had laughed at the description. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as one of the weakest species. They had no natural armor, no claws or fangs, and their technology was centuries behind most civilized races. The job would take a day at most. He arrived at Kepler 442b under cover of darkness, his ship landing silently in a clearing several kilometers from the research station. The world was covered in thick forests with massive trees that blocked most sunlight from reaching the ground. Perfect hunting territory for someone of his skills. The research station itself was a small collection of prefabricated buildings connected by covered walkways. Through his advanced sensors, Kethvar could detect 12 life signs moving about their daily routines. Some worked in laboratories, others collected samples from the forest, and a few maintained equipment. Kethvar spent 2 days observing their patterns before making his first move. The humans followed predictable schedules, making them easy targets. They showed no awareness that death stalked them through the shadows of the forest. His first kill came as a researcher named David collected soil samples near a stream. Kethvar struck from behind with surgical precision, his claws piercing the human's heart before the man could make a sound. The body was disposed of quickly, buried where it would never be found. The second human fell the next morning. A woman named Lisa had wandered away from the main group to photograph unusual flowers. Kethvar dropped from a tree branch above her, ending her life in seconds. Again he concealed all evidence of the attack. His third victim was a maintenance worker who had gone to check solar panels on the station's outer edge. The man simply vanished without a trace, another clean kill added to Kethvar's record. This was how hunting always proceeded. Fear would spread among the prey as members of their group disappeared. Panic would set in, causing mistakes that made the remaining targets even easier to eliminate. Kethvar expected the humans to begin abandoning the station within hours. But something strange happened instead. When the research team realized 3 of their colleagues were missing, they did not panic. They did not flee. Instead, they gathered in the main laboratory and began what appeared to be a scientific discussion. Kethvar watched through the windows as the remaining 9 humans spread maps across a table. They marked locations where their missing teammates had last been seen. A tall man with dark hair, who seemed to be their leader, pointed to various spots on the map while the others took notes. The leader's name was Dr. Minho, according to intercepted communications. He was a xenobiologist who had spent years studying dangerous life forms on frontier worlds. As Kethvar observed, Minho organized his team with calm efficiency. "We are being hunted," Minho told his colleagues matter-of-factly. "Something killed David, Lisa, and Chin. It was precise, professional, and left no trace. This suggests an intelligent predator with advanced capabilities." A woman named Soare, who appeared to be the team's security specialist, nodded in agreement. The disappearances follow a pattern. Isolated targets taken when they were alone and vulnerable. Whatever is hunting us understands human behavior. Another team member, Hygiene, pulled up files on her computer. "I've been researching galactic predator species. Based on the evidence, this could be a Scarnian hunter. They're known for methodical stalking techniques." Kethvar felt his first flicker of surprise. These humans were analyzing him like a scientific specimen. They showed no fear, only curiosity and determination to understand their predator. Over the following days, the humans implemented changes that made Kethvar's hunting far more difficult. They stopped working alone, always traveling in groups of 3 or more. They established check-in procedures, with team members reporting their status every 30 minutes. Most disturbing of all, they began setting up observation equipment throughout the forest. Cameras, motion sensors and audio recording devices created a network of surveillance around their station. The humans were turning their research tools into hunting aids. Taejun, the team's technology specialist, had modified their equipment to detect heat signatures and unusual movement patterns. If something is stalking us, he explained to his teammates, we need to study it just as intensively as it studies us. The humans also began leaving what appeared to be bait. Team members would venture into the forest in small groups, but now they carried weapons improvised from their scientific equipment. They moved with purpose, clearly hoping to draw their hunter into an ambush. For the first time in his career, Kethvar found himself being hunted by his own prey. The humans had transformed from victims into researchers conducting a field study on predator behavior. They analyzed his methods, predicted his movements and adapted their defenses accordingly. What had begun as a simple elimination contract was becoming the most complex hunt of Kethvar's long life. The humans were learning from every encounter, treating each attack as data to be studied and understood. They were no longer running from death but actively pursuing knowledge about the creature that hunted them. As Kethvar crouched in the forest canopy, watching the research station below, he realized these humans were unlike any prey he had ever encountered. They possessed something that made them far more dangerous than their physical limitations suggested, an unrelenting desire to learn and adapt. The 4th human died on a rainy morning while checking weather monitoring equipment. Kethvar had waited patiently for hours, timing his strike perfectly when the man stepped away from his companions. But this time, something was different about how the humans responded. Instead of simply noting another disappearance, the research team rushed to examine the body before Kethvar could dispose of it. They photographed the wounds, measured the claw marks, and collected samples of scales that had been scraped off during the attack. The humans treated their dead colleague like a scientific specimen. Dr. Jiwoo, who had taken over leadership duties from Minho, crouched beside the body and pointed out details to her teammates. Look at the entry angle of these wounds. The attacker struck from above and behind, suggesting it can climb or has aerial capabilities. Soare measured the spacing between claw marks with precise instruments. These cuts are too clean and deep for natural claws. The predator has enhanced or artificial weapons. The width suggests something much larger than a human. As Kethvar watched from his hiding place in the forest canopy, he felt deeply unsettled. These humans were studying him like they might study an interesting insect. There was no fear in their voices, no panic in their movements. They approached his handiwork with the same calm interest they might show when examining a new plant species. Over the following days, the humans began implementing changes that made Kethvar question everything he knew about hunting. They started leaving small recording devices in locations where he was likely to pass. At first, he thought these might be attempts to track his movements. But when he played back the recordings, he discovered something far more disturbing. The devices contained detailed analyses of his hunting methods, spoken in the calm, measured tones of scientific observation. Young Soo, the team's communications expert, had recorded dozens of these audio logs. His voice carried no fear as he spoke into the recording devices. Day 7 of Predator Observation. The creature shows consistent behavioral patterns. It prefers to attack from elevated positions, always targeting isolated individuals. The kills are efficient, suggesting extensive training or natural instincts refined over many years. Another recording contained even more unsettling content. The predator demonstrates advanced intelligence and patience. It has been observing us for extended periods before attacking. This suggests it understands human behavior patterns and uses that knowledge to select optimal hunting opportunities. But the recording that truly disturbed Kethvar came from Hygiene, the team's xenobiologist. Based on physical evidence, our predator appears to be a Scarnian. These are fascinating creatures with highly developed hunting instincts. I would love the opportunity to conduct a proper behavioral study. The scientific value would be extraordinary. The woman spoke about studying him like he was some rare animal in a zoo. There was genuine excitement in her voice, as if the prospect of examining a Scarnian hunter was the opportunity of a lifetime rather than a death sentence. The humans began setting traps, but not the crude snares or pitfalls that most prey species attempted. Their traps were psychological weapons designed to exploit what they had learned about Scarnian behavior patterns. They left false trails, created fake vulnerabilities, and established elaborate deceptions. Taejun rigged motion sensors to create phantom heat signatures, making Kethvar think humans were present in locations where they were not. Soare used her security training to establish false patrol routes that appeared to leave gaps in their defenses. These gaps were actually carefully prepared killing zones. The humans had turned their research station into a complex maze of misdirection and carefully planned ambushes. They were no longer simply defending themselves but actively hunting their hunter. Most disturbing of all, they began attempting to communicate with him. Young-Soo left audio messages specifically addressed to Kethvar, speaking as if he were a colleague rather than a predator. "We know you can understand our language," Young-Soo said in one recording. "Your hunting methods show too much intelligence for a creature that cannot comprehend human communication. We have questions about Skarnian biology and culture. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss mutual interests." The audacity of the suggestion shocked Kethvar. These humans wanted to interview him while he was actively hunting them. They treated the entire situation like a scientific opportunity rather than a life-or-death struggle. The psychological pressure began affecting Kethvar's performance. For the first time in centuries he found himself second-guessing his instincts. Every shadow might hide a trap, every apparent opportunity could be an elaborate deception. The humans had made him afraid to hunt. The breaking point came on the 12th day. Kethvar had identified what appeared to be a perfect ambush opportunity. A lone human was collecting water samples from a stream, apparently unaware of any danger. All of Kethvar's senses told him this was a genuine chance for another clean kill. He dropped from the trees and landed silently behind his target, claws extended for the killing strike. But the moment his feet touched the ground, he realized he had made a terrible mistake. The human at the stream was a decoy, a cleverly arranged collection of equipment designed to mimic human heat and movement signatures. The real humans were positioned in a circle around the clearing, hidden behind trees and rocks. Motion sensors triggered the moment Kethvar landed, and suddenly the forest floor erupted in a series of controlled explosions. The blast did not harm him, but they created a barrier of flame and smoke that trapped him in the center of the clearing. Emergency flares provided bright illumination, eliminating all shadows where he might hide. For the first time in his life, Kethvar found himself completely exposed and vulnerable. 9 humans emerged from their hiding places, but instead of weapons they carried scientific instruments. Dr. Jiwoo stepped forward with her hands empty, showing no sign of fear or hostility. "Hello," she said calmly as if greeting a colleague. "We would very much like to talk with you." Trapped in the center of the burning clearing, Kethvar crouched low and prepared to fight his way out. His claws extended to their full length, and his scales shifted to their darkest combat coloration. He had been caught off guard, but he was still a deadly predator with centuries of experience. Dr. Jiwoo stood 20 feet away from him, her hands empty and her posture relaxed. Behind her, 8 other humans maintained a loose circle around the clearing, but they were not pointing weapons at him. Instead, they held scientific instruments and recording devices, as if they were preparing to document some fascinating natural phenomenon. "Please do not attempt to escape just yet," Jiwoo said in a calm, professional voice. "We have invested considerable time and effort in arranging this meeting. It would be wasteful to end it prematurely." Kethvar snarled, showing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "You think these little fires will hold me human? I have killed creatures that could melt starship hulls with their breath." "Oh, we know exactly what you are capable of," Jiwoo replied, consulting a data pad in her hands. "Kethvar the Relentless, born on Skarn approximately 340 years ago. You began hunting professionally at age 57. Your confirmed kills include representatives from over 200 species across 47 star systems." The casual way she recited his life history sent a chill through Kethvar's spine. No prey had ever researched him so thoroughly. Most victims never even knew what was hunting them until it was too late. Sang-ho, a younger man holding a scanner, spoke up from his position near the tree line. "The biological readings are fascinating. His heart rate increased when you mentioned his age. Skarnians are sensitive about others knowing their personal history. Interesting cultural trait," added Mina, who was taking detailed photographs of Kethvar's scales and claws. "Most predator species do not show emotional responses to biographical information. This suggests a complex social structure." Kethvar felt his anger rising. These humans were discussing him like he was some laboratory specimen. "You dare to analyze me while I stand before you? I could kill all of you in less than 30 seconds. "Possibly," Jiwoo acknowledged with a slight nod. "But you would learn nothing from such an action. And learning is what truly drives you, is it not?" The question caught Kethvar off guard. No one had ever suggested that his hunting was motivated by anything other than money or bloodlust. Jiwoo continued without waiting for an answer. We have studied your hunting patterns across multiple worlds. You do not simply kill for payment. You research your prey for months or years before making contact. You learn their behavioral patterns, their weaknesses, their fears. The kill itself is almost secondary to the process of understanding. She gestured to Junho, who was operating a complex analysis device. You are a scientist just like us. The difference is that your laboratory is the hunting ground, and your research subjects do not survive the experience. You know nothing about me, Kethvar growled, but there was uncertainty in his voice. We know quite a lot actually, Jiwoo replied. For example, we know that you have never killed a sentient creature without first studying it extensively. You approach each hunt like a research project. You gather data, form hypotheses, and test your theories until you achieve the perfect kill. She took a step closer to him, showing no fear despite being within easy striking range. You hunt for sport, for glory, for the intellectual challenge of solving an impossible puzzle. Each trophy in your collection represents a problem you successfully solved. Kethvar found himself listening despite his anger. No one had ever understood his motivations so clearly. But here is what makes humans different from every other species you have hunted, Jiwoo continued. We hunt for survival, and that makes us infinitely more dangerous. We do not just want to kill our prey. We want to understand it completely. We hunt until there is nothing left to learn, nothing left to surprise us. And we never, ever stop. The words hit Kethvar like a physical blow. He had spent 12 days hunting these humans, but they had been hunting him just as intensively. Every move he made, every technique he employed, had been observed and catalogued. You see, said Soare from her position behind a fallen log, we are persistence hunters by nature. Our ancestors on Earth spent days tracking prey across vast distances, never giving up, never stopping until their target collapsed from exhaustion. We bring that same relentless approach to everything we do. Young Su held up a recording device. We have documented 17 distinct hunting techniques you have used against us. We understand your movement patterns, your decision-making process, and your psychological profile. In scientific terms, you are no longer an unknown variable. The revelation was more terrifying than any physical threat. These humans had dissected his methods as thoroughly as he had studied his previous prey. They had turned his own approach against him. What do you want from me? Kethvar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jiwoo smiled, but it was not a cruel expression. It was the satisfied smile of a researcher who had successfully completed a difficult experiment. We want to offer you a choice. You can walk away now and we will allow you to leave unharmed. We have learned everything we needed to know about Scarnian hunting techniques. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Or you can stay and continue trying to hunt us. But if you choose that path, we will continue our education. We will study your every move, adapt to your every strategy, until we have surpassed you completely. Eventually you will become the prey. For the first time in his centuries-long career, Kethvar faced a choice between retreat and certain defeat. The humans had transformed from victims into superior predators through the simple process of learning. They had beaten him not with strength or technology, but with the one thing he had always believed belonged only to him: perfect understanding of the hunt. The three Zephyrian representatives stood in stunned silence as Kethvar's words echoed through his trophy chamber. The blue-skinned merchant who had made the offer looked confused and frustrated. He had come expecting to hire the galaxy's most feared hunter for what seemed like a simple job. Great hunter, the merchant said carefully, I do not understand your reluctance. These are merely humans. They have no natural weapons, no advanced technology, and short lifespans. How can they possibly threaten someone of your abilities? Kethvar turned away from his visitors and walked deeper into his trophy room. His massive claws clicked against the polished floor as he moved between the display cases. Each trophy represented years of careful study and planning, the successful completion of hunts that other predators had considered impossible. You speak of humans as if they are weak, Kethvar said without looking back at his guests. But weakness and strength are not what you think they are. The void wraith whose essence you see contained there was considered immortal by most species. It could exist outside normal space and time, feeding on the cores of dying stars. He stopped before the energy containment field that held the wraith's remains. I spent 50 years learning how to trap something that existed partially outside reality. It nearly killed me 3 times during the hunt. But eventually, I found its weakness and claimed victory. The merchant shifted impatiently. Yes, your achievements are legendary. That is precisely why we need your services for this human problem. Kethvar moved to another display case containing the crystallized remains of a telepathic overmind. This creature could control the thoughts of entire planetary populations. It ruled 17 worlds through mental domination alone. I had to learn to shield my mind completely before I could even approach it. He traced one claw along the surface of the case. Each hunt taught me something new about the nature of predation. I became the perfect hunter by understanding that every prey species had weaknesses that could be exploited. Every species except one. The second consortium representative, a smaller being with gray skin, spoke up nervously. Surely you cannot mean that humans are more dangerous than creatures that exist outside reality? For the first time since the conversation began, Kethvar laughed. But it was not a sound of amusement. It was the bitter laugh of someone who had learned a terrible truth. More dangerous? No. But infinitely more terrifying. He turned to face his visitors directly, his predatory eyes reflecting the dim light of the trophy room. You want to know why I will not hunt humans? Because they do not just survive being hunted. They learn from it. Every technique you use against them, they master. Every advantage you have, they find a way to turn against you. The blue-skinned merchant frowned. Surely you exaggerate. What could humans possibly learn that would threaten someone of your capabilities? Kethvar moved to a section of his trophy room that was noticeably empty. Several display cases sat vacant, their lights dark and their contents missing. 3 years ago, I accepted a contract to eliminate a human research station. 12 scientists studying plants on a frontier world. It should have been the simplest hunt of my career. He gestured to the empty cases. I had planned to add human specimens to my collection. Instead, I learned something that changed everything I understood about predation. The memory of that encounter still filled Kethvar with unease. The first 3 humans died easily, exactly as expected. But the remaining 9 did not panic or flee. Instead, they began studying me just as intensively as I had studied them. His voice grew quieter as he continued. They analyzed my hunting patterns, documented my techniques, and adapted their defenses accordingly. Within days, they had transformed from helpless prey into competent hunters. They turned their scientific training into weapons more effective than any technology. The gray-skinned representative looked skeptical. But surely your superior physical abilities gave you an overwhelming advantage? Physical abilities mean nothing when your prey understands your psychology better than you do, Kethvar replied. The human leader, Dr. Jiwoo, dissected my motivations like a scientific specimen. She knew I hunted for intellectual challenge, not just bloodlust. He moved to a wall covered with detailed star charts, each one marking the location of a successful hunt. Humans are the galaxy's only true persistence predators on a sapient level. While other species rely on superior technology or natural abilities, humans rely on adaptation and learning. They are evolution in action, constantly improving themselves through experience. The blue-skinned merchant was growing increasingly frustrated. These are just words. What actual threat could they pose to someone who has killed gods and monsters? Kethvar's eyes narrowed dangerously. Hunt a human and you do not just risk failure. You risk creating something that can hunt you back. Every technique you use against them becomes part of their knowledge base. Every weakness you exploit, they learn to defend against. He gestured to his collection of trophies. I have successfully hunted creatures that existed partially outside reality itself. I have killed beings that could control minds across vast distances. But humans showed me something that none of my previous prey possessed: the ability to become better hunters than their predators. The chamber fell silent as Kethvar's words sank in. The 3 consortium representatives exchanged uncertain glances, beginning to understand why the galaxy's most feared hunters showed such reluctance. Those scientists turned their research station into a laboratory for studying predator behavior, Kethvar continued. Minho with his tactical planning, Soare with her security expertise, Jiwoo with her psychological analysis. They approached the problem of being hunted like any other scientific challenge. His voice carried a note of genuine fear as he delivered his final warning. The galaxy's most feared hunter refuses to hunt humans because the only thing more terrifying than a perfect predator is prey that refuses to stay prey. Find another solution to your human problem, because I will not create monsters that could eventually hunt me.